Good morning. So this morning our topic is living in the light. And you think of all the ways that we talk about and think about light on the spiritual path. We've just had 2 chants talking about divine light. We think of the yagyas, the havans that we had outside this morning, the Gayatri mantra and the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, using light to help us uplift our consciousness into the light and to purify our seeds of karma into God's purifying light. And, the Bible, in the Bible it says, let there be light, and the light was good. And in the Upanishads, lead us from darkness into light. Throughout, so many religions. In Diwali, we have Festival of Light. We have so much on our path. Certainly the spiritual eye, we always say gaze up into the light, the divine light, expanding the light, Divine Mother's healing light. It's permeating certainly our spiritual path and the paths of all, true religions all over the world. And so we come together today to also celebrate light, and we wanted to talk about divine light, and in particular way today, because let's say we come to experience the light and the vibration of joy, of wisdom, of Om here, but there's so many times that we sort of lose track of that light. And it's easy when things happen to us in this world to forget about the light and forget to live in the light. And we forget to ask that God bless us with light. And it's just so easy to fall off the spiritual path. And we sometimes think, maybe we start meditation and our lives suddenly start to become better. We come here, we get some tools and techniques, our vrittis start to realign, we begin to have a more purposeful life, we begin to be more calm and even-minded, and suddenly everything's going well. And as things start to go well, sometimes we don't try as hard to be in the light and to ask for that light. And so maybe we just don't come to satsang this weekend and then next weekend, and pretty soon we're not coming to satsang, and pretty soon, we're not really thinking about the light as actively as we used to. And we think, what happened? I used to be so inspired. I used to really know what I wanted to do in life. Also, when we read Autobiography of a Yogi, maybe for the first time, we were so excited. And then we learned meditation and we were on the spiritual path and everything was flowing so well and everything changed in our lives. And we were on fire with excitement for God's light and joy and presence. And then sometimes that happens. We forget. Our spiritual karma may run out, or our good karma for being on the spiritual path may run out. But for whatever reasons, we tend to not invoke the light. We don't come. We don't put ourselves in environments and satsangs where we're constantly reinforcing the divine light and the vibration of God and the masters, of that inner peace that comes from meditation, of that, spiritual satsang that comes from being together with other meditators and other truth seekers. How easily that happens in our lives, because, we also fall back to where we came from. And where we came from feels very familiar. It feels like us. And so it also feels natural. But it's not until we get ourselves to a point of trouble again, or we hit a crisis or sorrow when we realize, wow, why haven't I been maintaining myself in the light and holding strong to that light? And so Swami Kriyananda in the 1980s, he realized that in Ananda's satsangs, we call them Sunday services in America and in Europe, that we didn't have any regular weekly way of invoking the light. The acharyas at the time, they would speak about Yogananda's teachings having to do with marriage or relationships or career or bringing up a family or creativity. And they would talk about these various aspects. But if somebody happened to come to a satsang or a Sunday service on that day, they may think the whole path was about that, or about spiritualizing family life, or just about, bringing magnetism into your career. And they wouldn't know what Master Yogananda's teachings were all about. And so he wanted to create a ceremony where we could talk about the basic tenets of this path, the core principles of this path of self-realization every week, but in a way that wouldn't become too redundant or boring, that would involve each other, that really helped uplift us into the light, and to remind us, by using sayings like, "You are a part of all that is," or "With all my heart, mind, soul, and strength, I choose thy love." There's so many sayings in the Festival of Light that he created. So what happened is that he prayed to Yogananda ji, "Give me a ceremony that will have your teachings in it, that we can do every week." And he said he just received in a flash the inspiration for the whole ceremony. So this Festival of Light that he wrote is done every Sunday in every Ananda center in the US and in Europe. It's only in India where we don't do it every Sunday. And so Keshava and I thought we would talk a little bit about it today. We're not going to do the Festival of Light today, but we're just going to talk about it. And the Festival of Light is like a reminder of what our purpose is in life and where we're going. And the first time I heard it, when I came to Ananda, it was brand new. This was back in '94. And I went into the temple in Palo Alto, across from Stanford University. There was a wonderful acharya speaking, and I loved her talk, Nayaswami Asha. But at the end, they performed this Festival of Light, and I had never heard it before. I had read Autobiography, but that was earlier. And this Festival of Light really helped me to understand sort of the soul's journey in life. How the soul leaves God, and how God sort of sends the soul off to learn lessons and be fruitful and to share with all. And then the soul sort of says, "No, why would I want to share everything? I should keep everything that I have to myself." And then the soul has a lot of hard lessons, and then slowly comes back around and learns that its strength was never its own. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. I remember crying my heart out the first time I heard it. So it just touched me very, very deeply. And, these ceremonies, just like the hawans that we did outside, they become very powerful if we have an inner life. So any ceremony, if we have an inner life that we can match with the outer ritual or the outer ceremony, can transform our consciousness. Just like we're throwing seeds of rice into the fire with the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. That may just be nothing to somebody if they don't understand the deep meaning, but those of us who are meditating and doing Kriya Yoga every day, we know that that has such a deep inner significance. We're offering all our energy, all our sense of separation, all our desires, all our attachments up into God's purifying light. And every time we say Om Swaha, we are surrendering ourselves and sending those seeds to be purified. Otherwise, if somebody doesn't know, it's just like, what's this about throwing rice into the fire? So the Festival of Light also, if we take it from the deep inner meaning of what it means for the transformation of our consciousness, and we come together as a spiritual satsang, as spiritual gurubais and behens, and we come together, it has so much power to uplift and shift our consciousness. And in the festival, near the end, it begins to talk about the celebration of the light, the ray of light that has come down through our line of masters. Because we all, our souls have called for light to descend to us in the form of an avatar. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita when it says, virtue declines and adharma's on the ascendant, God will send an avatar, but that is in response to our soul calls. And so since God has sent this line of masters who give us teachings, to give us their power, to give us their realization, to give us their wisdom and light. We celebrate that we have the wisdom to want to receive it and open ourselves to receive that light. And so today when we do the arati, we'll be, instead of singing Shri Ram Jai Ram, as we usually do on Sundays, we're going to be singing the songs of this particular Festival of Light, where we ask God to purify our hearts as we lay our desires, born of delusion, at God's feet. And we're very grateful that God has sent us this ray of grace, this ray of light through our line of gurus, and that we ask to just receive that grace and receive that light and be allowed to share that light. Because not only do we receive it, but we ask to be able to share it, and then we share it. Because that is how we grow, is by sharing that light, that grace, that vibration of the divine through us. That's how we grow. So for those who sometimes have the tendency to fall off the path or get lazy or not show up for satsang or forget to ask for the grace of light to always flow through their lives, this ceremony is a wonderful weekly way that they do in Europe and in the West to remind us, what are we doing in life? We are so happy we chose to come here on Sunday morning. We are so happy that these masters are with us. We are so happy that now we are living in the light, and that we are beings of light, and that we celebrate it with each other. That's the joy of having spiritual family, is that we can celebrate that all together. It makes it very, very powerful. And now Keshava is going to talk more about the ceremony, and then we'll do a little bit of it together with the arati.
Now you can pick up that piece of paper if you like. And we'll just explore a few words of the festival that Swamiji wrote, because he put a lot of deep meaning in just a few words. He starts out by saying, "Let us lift up our hearts in a festival of light." And so here we offer up our heart's feelings to affirm and celebrate this inner light, this divine light of God's presence, of God's grace within us. And feeling, of course, is centered in the heart. And that feeling can go outward in emotion, in love, in hate, in anger. Or we can draw that feeling upwards, up to the spiritual eye. We can offer it to God in surrender, in devotion. And we need to use our willpower to direct that energy upwards. It doesn't go there all by itself. What tends to happen is it goes out in emotions unless we consciously direct it otherwise. And this ceremony is one of the heart, one of feelings of the heart, not the intellect. He writes, "The essence of this ceremony has been passed down from ancient times." And when we first come here, some of the practices probably seem new to us. Energization, meditation, trying to stay calm all throughout the day. These, for many of us, have been new practices. But there's really nothing new. All of these teachings are really part of Sanatana Dharma, the ancient truth, the eternal truth that has always been with us. And Krishna said that he taught these teachings of Kriya or something similar in a previous incarnation to Manu, to this ancient sages who were already ancient in ancient times. Swamiji writes, "O waves that we are on the bosom of the infinite sea, Yoganandaji would often use this image of being a wave on the ocean. And we have the choice. Each of us is a wave. We can choose to push up with our ego against the ocean and assert our individuality, or we can dissolve into the bosom of that infinite sea of God's presence. That choice, that is our free will. And Yoganandaji would let's go on to the next line where he says, joyfully together, let us celebrate our own greater reality. And so we affirm together to choose to identify with our higher self, with that infinite sea. As Yoganandaji would say, I am the wave, but make me the sea. Make me the sea of God's infinite power. In his poem that we read last week, a tiny bubble of laughter, I am become the sea of mirth itself. This is the destiny for every soul. Swamiji writes, for now, by God's grace, our redemption is at hand. We're close to our spiritual liberation. Our redemption is an exchange, exchanging limited ego identification for a greater reality, for that infinite ocean of spirit. Swamiji writes, the divine light returning anew to earth. Divine light is always here, but there are times when it's more visible. As Daya said, Krishna tells us, whenever there is great need, when Dharma declines, I will incarnate as an avatar to help humanity. And here in our time, this line of avatars have descended to help each one of us. And they make a further promise. If we practice Kriya faithfully and regularly, self-realization can be ours. Yoganandaji said, those who persevere till the end, I or one of the masters will be there to take you across at the hour of your death. And this divine light has given us, Swamiji says, the power to become the sons of God. It's said about Christ, as we know, to all those who received him, he gave the power to become realized, to become the sons of God. But we need to open our hearts so that we can receive that power. It's there available, but we need to open to it. Swamiji writes, into our hands have been delivered the sacred keys of awakening. We have the power, we have the energy, we have the techniques, we have this path, this way of life. These are the keys. And we just need to use these keys, these sacred keys of awakening. Abundant now is our hope, Swamiji writes. The Lord, through the Bhagavad Gita, promised, even the worst of sinners, by steadfast meditation on me, speedily comes to me. Again in that holy scripture he declared, even a little practice of this inward religion will free one from dire fears and colossal sufferings. And whereas suffering and sorrow in the past were the coin of man's liberation, for us now the payment has been exchanged for calm acceptance and joy. Yoganandaji often quoted Krishna on these these passages. And ego-oriented people tend to think that we were made to suffer, that we must be unhappy, disappointed, because not everything goes the way that we want it to go, that we're not perfect, and that the things outside of ourselves are always changing. They're beyond our control. But Krishna tells us here that even a little meditation frees us from that suffering, from that feeling of being incomplete. We become free by calm acceptance and joy. The best way to deal with difficulty, with difficult karma, is calm acceptance. And we don't need to be perfect. We just need to look towards the light, and the help is there. Swamiji writes, thus, may we understand that pain is the fruit of self-love, whereas joy is the fruit of love for God. As we all know, when we think only of ourselves, we are the ones who suffer. And the more we love God, the more we serve God in other people, the more we feel joy. We exchange sorrow for calm acceptance and joy. Swamiji writes, from sun and moon and all the stars, from glistening seas, high mountains, desert solitudes, and vast fruitful plains, and from the hearts of mankind and of creatures everywhere, goes up in wordless yearning a prayer for redemption. From the moment everything was manifested out of the vibration of Om, not just man, but all of creation has had this inner pull to merge again back into the infinite, to be reunited with that unmanifested spirit. Just like a drop of water, once that drop of water melts from the glacier at Gangotri, it has one aim, and that is to seek the sea. And so that drop of water is like our soul. We have one aim, to be reunited with spirit that we left behind. Let me, you can follow along if you like with the page. Let me share the entire passage, and you can follow along, or you can just absorb it with your eyes closed. Let us lift up our hearts in a festival of light. The essence of this ceremony has been passed down from ancient times. O waves that we are on the bosom of the infinite sea, joyfully together let us celebrate our own greater reality. For now, by God's grace, our redemption is at hand. The divine light, returning anew to earth, has given us power to become the sons of God. Into our hands have been delivered the sacred keys of awakening. Abundant now is our hope. The Lord, through the Bhagavad Gita, promised, even the worst of sinners, by steadfast meditation on me, speedily comes to me. Again, in that holy scripture, he declared, even a little practice of this inward religion will free one from dire fears and colossal sufferings. And whereas suffering and sorrow in the past were the coin of man's liberation, for now the payment has been exchanged for calm acceptance and joy. Thus may we understand that pain is the fruit of self-love, whereas joy is the fruit of love for God. from sun and moon and all the stars, from glistening seas, high mountains, desert solitudes, and vast fruitful plains, and from the hearts of mankind and of creatures everywhere, goes up in wordless yearning a prayer for redemption.